Putin is counting on shaky backing for Ukraine in a race against the clock. How do they win the war in Ukraine? In January of this year, then-President Trump claimed that if he were re-elected, he would have that war settled in one day, 24 hours. Vladimir Putin, the Russian president, is making a slightly less optimistic prediction that the war could be over in a week if everything goes according to plan. On Thursday, Putin made a prediction that Ukraine would collapse if the West cuts off military aid and economic assistance in his speech to the annual meeting of the Valdai Discussion Club, a Kremlin-friendly confab on global issues. The Ukrainian economy, in general, is hopeless without foreign assistance, he said. Once you put a stop to this, in a week it will all be over. Finished. The same goes for the defense system. Pretend that supplies will end tomorrow. By the time the ammunition runs out, you'll have no more than a week to live. Putin's strategy in Ukraine was perhaps most clearly articulated in these remarks, in which he stated that the longer the bloody war of attrition drags on, the more likely the Western alliance supporting Ukraine will break apart. Recent events, which have alarmed those who support Ukraine, seem to indicate that Putin's plan is gaining traction. Consider the news reports of late out of Washington. To avoid a government shutdown last week, President Joe Biden signed a stopgap bill into law, but funding for Ukraine was cut as a result of the partisan posturing on Capitol Hill. The legislation signed into law may only fund the government until November 17, but it does not provide any new money for Ukraine. The Biden administration has been very clear that there is widespread public support in the United States for Ukraine. However, the clock starts ticking for Kyiv due to the lack of funding in the bill, and the White House is scrambling to find alternatives. The United States has been Ukraine's consistent lifeline throughout the war, providing around $113 billion in aid, including direct military aid, budget infusions, and humanitarian aid. But the recent resignation of House Speaker Kevin McCarthy has cast serious doubt on the near-term prospects for a new aid package. Legislative business in the House is on hold until a permanent speaker is elected. The government does have some leeway. The Department of Defense's top accountant, the Pentagon Comptroller, has pointed out that the Presidential Drawdown Authority can be used to restock Ukraine's depleting arsenal. However, the drama in Congress isn't over yet. Conservative lawmakers' opposition to providing Ukraine with long-term support has raised serious doubts, especially in the midst of a major counteroffensive. Putin's calculations are further complicated by the competition for the Republican nomination for president. The Kremlin is likely aware that a number of GOP hopefuls have expressed strong reservations about providing assistance to Ukraine. The leader of the pack is Trump, who is not on Ukraine's side. It's important to keep in mind that the United States isn't the only country providing financial aid to Ukraine. About 39% of Ukraine's direct military aid comes from European Union members. Putin obviously expects Europeans to grow weary of the Ukraine crisis. This week, parliamentary elections were held in Slovakia, a member of the European Union and the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, and a party led by Robert Fico, a populist and pro-Kremlin figure, emerged victorious. With his false claims that Ukrainian Nazis and fascists are to blame for Russia's full-scale invasion of Ukraine, Fico has urged the Slovak government to stop arming the Ukrainian government, which is likely music to Putin's ears. It would appear that Putin's advisors are also keeping up with the defense industry press. In remarks made this week, Russia's president pointed out that the United States manufacturing sector has been having trouble keeping up with the rising demand for ammunition needed by Ukraine, which has been engaged in an artillery duel with Russia. During the Valdai conference, he made the following statement: the United States produces 14,155 mm shells, and Ukrainian troops expend up to 5,000 per day, and there they produce 14,000 per month. Are you getting what we're trying to say? We still have to wait until the end of the year, but they are trying to increase production to 75,000 by then. Putin's memos might be off by a few hundred rounds, as the United States currently produces 28,000 shells per month. It's true that the United States and its European allies are in a desperate race to catch up to Russia's industrial base, as the Russian president correctly stated.